Hey, what's going on, No Nation? It's CJ Wilson here with Dope Talk. I am your host. Like I've been telling you guys, we're in the midst of starting fall camp. The 2024 season is upon us. And with that being said, we have been covering our preseason, well, pre-fall camp, rather, positional breakdowns. And with this one, we're going to go ahead and get jumping with the defensive line, defensive tackles, and defensive ends included. But before we get started, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Again, subscribe to Dope Talk. You want to get all these videos firsthand. We have a big season ahead of us with a lot of content to cover from every aspect of FSU football. So make sure you guys subscribe and get this information firsthand and join the ride. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and get started with the defensive line. And this position group overall is one of the best on the team as well. Very deep, something we have really had in past years. I think that's the biggest difference from past defensive lines at FSU under Mike Norvell to this year. A lot more depth and not too much of a big drop off after your first team guys, go to the bench. I want to start with the defensive tackles and one of the best players on the team, Joshua Farmar. You got to remember Joshua Farmar was one of the better defensive tackles for FSU last year, started the majority of their games, second team all ACC selection. This upcoming year should be no different. He should take an even bigger jump with, being the main guy as far as the defensive tackles is concerned. In my opinion, he should be competing for all ACC / All-American honors. It should be an early round selection in the NFL draft. Uber athletic. If you guys remember, Josh Farmer came in as an undersized 235, unheralded, underrated defensive end recruit. Came in and got developed by Coach Storms and Coach Odell, and now he's one of the better defensive tackles in all of the conference. So Josh didn't play rather this past spring due to a hand injury that he was recovering from the 2023 season. But nonetheless, we didn't need to see anything from him. We know exactly what we have in Josh Farmar, and that's one of the better defensive tackles in the country. He's gotten bigger and added some weight and more explosiveness, since this past season. So it shouldn't be any drop off at all as far as Josh Farmar's game. Moving on, Darrell Jackson, his counterpart, should be the main starter for the main opposite starter of Josh Farmer for this upcoming season at defensive tackle. You guys remember both of these guys are from the Tallahassee 850 area, Gaston County. They played their football under Coach Corey Fuller, who was the head coach at the time. Best friends. These guys been tied together, pretty much for the majority of their lives. Darrell Jackson didn't play this past season because he transferred from the University of Miami. And at that point in time, there was a 2-time transfer rule for guys that didn't graduate yet. So he had to sit out the majority of the season. Of course, that rule has been waived. And I believe Darrell Jackson's got granted an extra year for the 2023 season if needed. But again, if you look at the defensive tackle as far as built and how they're supposed to look at Darrell Jackson. He looks like a creative player. He's the guy that's going to be the first man off the bus type of deal. Long arms, really, really athletic body, lean, tall, 6'6", 335 plus pounds. Looks the part, right? And plays the part. This is some of the practices I've been to and hearing. He's been the menace for the offensive line, very hard to block. It was frustrating that he didn't get to play last year, but he did, carry that frustration over a little bit and kind of understand the situation and has that chip on his shoulder going in for the 2024 season. So as far as a defensive tackle tandem, I don't see a better duo in the ACC, in my opinion, this upcoming season than Darrell Jackson and Joshua Farmer. Of course, Josh Farmer has produced and showed it, but Darrell Jackson, just from what I've been hearing and seeing, just the small clips we got him playing at the University of Miami, I think playing be drafted this upcoming year in the NFL draft. As far as the guys who will probably be first off the bench to replace Josh Farmer and Darrell Jackson, Grady Kelly is a candidate. 6'2", 295-pound transfer from Colorado State. Gained a lot of good weight at FSU since being teamed up with Coach Storms in the strength and conditioning program, and FSU is very pleased with that. So a bigger body. He is a junior. He has 22 career starts at Colorado State. Was named a freshman All-American there as well. From Navarro, Florida, so he's pretty close to the area as far as FSU is concerned. So we have a Florida kid back on campus, Grady Kelly. I think he's going to be a very good rotational piece for FSU on the defensive line. Daniel Lyons, he's another defensive tackle the FSU is going to be counting on this upcoming year. Very sure sophomore, played sparingly the last couple of years, but stood out a lot within the limited reps that he's played. Plays with great technique, uses his hands, really athletic. The only issue the last couple of years has just been his size. He come in from the Miami, Florida area, needed to be developed size-wise. He's around 6'4", 295 pounds now. If he can stay consistent around the 290 to 305, 310 range, Daniel Lyons could be a very impactful player for FSU. Look for him to have a bigger role this upcoming year with the departures of Braden Fisk and Fabian Lovett. I think Daniel Lyons is pegged to have a pretty good year as a rotational guy for FSU. Another guy I want to speak about for as far as the defensive tackles, KJ Sampson, a redshirt freshman out of North Carolina area, 4-star recruit, around 6'3", 306 pounds. This past year, he redshirted FSU, playing majority of scout team, but he was a menace on the scout team. He did earn Scout Team Player of the Year from FSU due to his efforts on the field this past season, in practice and things like that. And Braden Fisk recently said in the interview when he was on campus at FSU that he thinks KJ will shock a lot of people and be one of the breakout players for this upcoming year. Uber athletic kid, moves very well for his size, really good hands, can get after the quarterback too. And like I say, athletic, played basketball back in North Carolina where KJ is from. So the athleticism is there, can move around, can actually be a pretty good pass rush defensive tackle as well. This is a guy, like I say, he's a redshirt freshman, but I think in a rotational setting, he can shock some people and bring some good value to FSU with the minutes that he does play. Let's go ahead and move on to the defensive ends. And of course, we're going to go ahead and get started, and you have to get started with Patrick Peyton, right? 6'5", 250 pounds. Now, he is the best returning defensive end for FSU, one of the better defensive ends in the country in the Atlantic Coast Conference. 44 tackles, 7 sacks last year, and 10 pass breakups. That 10 pass breakups really, his 10 pass breakups really stand out, as if you get 10 pass breakups as a defensive back, you're 9 times out of 10, you're getting some type of all-conference honors due to having that type of year. That's a big-time year from a defensive back standpoint for a defensive end to have that is just insane, right? So that just shows how he alters the game when he's not actually getting to the quarterback. Very long arms. So like I say, 6'5", 250, but his arms are pretty much down to his knees. So anytime, he's not able to get home to the quarterback from a pass rush standpoint, he's impeding the passing lanes with his long arms and getting pass breakups. So that just shows how valuable Patrick Peyton is. And he's also one of the better pass rushers in the country. You go back a couple of years ago, he was the ACC Freshman Defensive Player of the Year from the freshman standpoint. He's been very consistent for FSU. He was playing around 6'5", 235 pounds last year. He's at 250 now. If I would say it's an area of improvement for Patrick Peyton coming from last year to this year, it would be his run stop ability, and then they add 15 pounds to his frame can only help that. He can be more physical and more stout at the line of scrimmage. So look for Patrick Peyton to be an all-around complete player this year and continue that mantra that FSU has done as far as, highly rated defensive ends, taking over the conference, being better players in the conference, and going on to be early draft picks. If we go back to Jermaine Johnson and, of course, Jared Verse last year, Patrick Peyton is next up to be that big-time defensive end for FSU. Moving on to another defensive end we want to talk about, Marvin Jones Jr. The legacy kid out of Fort Lauderdale. As you guys remember, he transferred from Georgia. Shade Tree is his father. I want to say this about MJJ. He's been as good as advertised, probably even better than what FSU, the people within the program have expected. 6'5", 255 pounds. This guy's a crazy athlete. He gets in, honestly, as far as the genes of things like that. Can run, can move, a lot of bend, a lot of pass rush abilities. He was a terror for the defense. Got back in coverage a little bit, and he almost fooled DJU on, I want to say, the first series of the game. Ended up dropping in coverage. DJU didn't see him locking in on the running back, if I'm not mistaken, or just a crosser across the middle. And Marvin Jones ended up breaking up the pass and almost had a very athletic, impressive interception on that play. But just hearing the things I've been hearing about his work ethic and what he's been doing, he's going to be a terror on the edge. And like I said, 6'5", 250, 255, and you mirror Pat Peyton at 6'5", 250 as well. Very big defensive ends that can rush the passer, long arm guys. This is what FSU wants to be, pretty much on an annual basis from a size standpoint and a talent and athletic standpoint. So look for MJJ to have a very big year for FSU. Byron Turner is another defensive end. We're going to talk about 6'4", 251 pounds. He was mainly a backup last year, has a high motor, plays the run pretty well, and he also, due to his high motor, gets back on pass rush. Has some valuable reps for FSU for the 2023 season, but one of the things that Byron Turner lacked last year was just pure size, right? He was around 235 pounds playing on the edge. He's around 251 now. So if you add in that size with his violent nature, high motor, just how he plays the game, it's going to be some very valuable reps for Byron Turner, in my opinion, in the backup role. I think he's going to take the next step for FSU, will be more productive with more reps, with his reps increasing. Another defensive end I want to talk about, Seminoles Defense, transfer defensive end from Oregon State. Seminoles was a second-team All Pac-12 selection this past season for Oregon State. 6'3", 265 pounds. Another high motor guy that doesn't stop until the whistle is blown. He absolutely gets after the quarterback. He affects the game in a multitude of ways as far as pass rush. He's making sure the quarterback, get the ball off quicker than what they want to do, make them uncomfortable in the pocket. And he's also very stout in the running game. So I think he's going to be a valuable piece for FSU this upcoming year, just from past experience and what he brings to the table from a talent standpoint. One thing that I've been talking about as far as the defensive line, the defensive ends in general, is size, right? Big size. So you go back to last year, Jared Versa was around 250, Pat Peyton was around 235, and you add 15 pounds on Pat Peyton. But the main issue after that was the lack of depth after those guys. So once Jared Versa and those guys went to the bench, you have Byron Turner, who was, like I said, was smaller last year, and we had the South Carolina defensive end that last year. They ended up transferring back to South Carolina. My apologies, forget the kid's name, but he was on the lighter end as well, and was, quite frankly, was a little disappointing for FSU in regards to what he brought to the table. So I think the overall room is raised exponentially better than it was last year from a talent standpoint, a size standpoint. Each defensive end that you probably will see for FSU this upcoming season within the rotation is around 250 plus pounds. A big jump from last year, what we had as far as, after Jared Versa wasn't a defensive end on the roster, over 245. So from a size standpoint and a talent standpoint, the defensive end room is a lot better. And just the defensive line room overall, I think is better depth, more talent, more size. Another name I want to mention, and this guy pretty much plays inside and outside. He's going to be a jack of all trades. Tomiwa Durajay, the transfer from West Virginia, around 6'4", 280 pounds, played inside and outside for West Virginia. He's going to pretty much be doing the same thing for FSU. Can be a big defensive end due to packages, trying to stop the run, and he could be a more athletic inside pass rusher as defensive tackle. So he's a guy that's going to be a tweener that can do a lot of things, and that a guy I think FSU uses to create matchup nightmares, right? You want to create disadvantages where advantages for yourself, rather disadvantage for the opposite team in regards to matchups. And Tomiwa is going to be the perfect fit for that. He's physical, plays the run very well, uses his hands, and that's one thing I like his interviews. He's very detailed in regards to teaching and technique, and that's the main thing that he's learning coming from West Virginia to FSU, is that technique. So I think he's going to be coached up a lot better at FSU to bring out, more so of the potential that he has. So like I said, inside, outside, it doesn't matter. Pass rush, rushing the passer, stopping the run. I think he's going to be an asset for FSU. And at 6'4", 280 plus pounds, and can still move and be athletic, he's going to be, just that impactful for FSU to his size and athleticism. So I say that to say this: all of these guys we have great size, and I don't think it may not be the high end talent like we saw like the tail end of the season where Jared Versa and Braden Fisk just playing out of their mind, but the overall talent of the room is a lot better, and we'll see a lot better rotations and depth pieces and things like that, and just high level reps for FSU. It won't be that big of a drop off coming from one team to the second team. So I think we'll be pretty good in regards to not burning our defensive line out and letting these guys, stay fresh due to the rotation being damn good and not really having a drop off from the first team to the second team. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're going to jump into the rest of the defensive where the rest of the defensive team moving forward, the linebackers and defensive backs coming soon. So make sure you, like I said, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.